Welcome to the 73rd National Debate Tournament. My name is Carla Leeper. I'm currently the Executive Vice President for Operations at Augusta University in Augusta, Georgia. But before that, I spent 21 years as the Director of the Debate Program at Baylor. I was a graduate student at the University of Kansas, and I did my debating at the University of Iowa. And I'm originally from Des Moines, and Fred Sternhagen judged me when I was a sophomore in high school, which is embarrassing for both of us. On behalf of the Board of Trustees, I'm excited that you're here. I really have three just very short things that I want you to think about over the course of the weekend. I think sometimes, and I did this, I was one of those type A sort of debaters, I spent all year running to get to the NDT. Right? And then when I got to the NDT, it all kind of went by in a blur because I was so focused on what was happening at the tournament. And believe it or not, Tuesday is going to get here. And so there's a couple of things that I want to say to you about this particular tournament experience. I think Alicia did a great job of talking about what debate means to you, but I want to talk for just a minute about this tournament, because that's really what the Board of Trustees does. We focus on this tournament. The first thing I want to say to you is be kind to the tournament host. We are so grateful for the University of Minnesota and DCRAM and his staff for doing this. There are going to be thousands of things behind the scenes that you will never see, and it's because they were so competent in getting things done and making this a great experience for you. Take 10 seconds and say thank you to them. If something happens and you have a request, right, and I'm going to say that it's a request, ask them kindly and gently, but they've worked all year on this to make it a great experience for you. Pick up your stuff behind you, pick up your trash, go where they ask you, but be kind to the host because it is a huge effort to host the tournament and to have it be what you want. The second thing I would say to you is take a minute while you're here and enjoy the people that you're with, enjoy the experience, take pictures, post them online. Alicia's right, in general you mostly won't remember the actual debates, and what you do remember, those stories will get better as you tell them over and over. And in 20 years, they will bear no resemblance to what actually happened. I coached Josh Sive, and I can promise you that's the case. But it's going to be the people, right? It's going to be the friends that you've made in the activity. It's going to be the moments at this tournament. But every now and again, just stop and lift your head up. I used to say out of your flow pads, but you guys don't do that anymore. I'm a sideways flower like Dallas. Lift your head up out of the computer screen and look around and see all the incredible friends that you have and all of the fun that you're having, the relationships you have with your coaches. But just take a minute and appreciate what you've accomplished to get here. The last thing I would say is remember that you are part of a community that is unlike any community that you will ever participate again in your entire life. Some of you may stay in debate, and that's great. Some of you will leave and go somewhere else. There is nowhere, and I can say this with a great deal of authority from experience, where you can have the kind of rigorous intellectual conversations, and they're done with a great sense of respect and concern and care and freedom to test ideas and to challenge principles and concepts that maybe you've held for a while. You will never have this opportunity ever again. You will never be part of anything like this. Graduate school is close if you choose to do that, but you are in a community that is special and unique. And as a result of your membership in that community, you have a network. When you apply for jobs or look for internships or do other things in the future, people will see that you have debate on your resume, and that is part of a network of people, a network of influencers that is meaningful and valuable to you. And you need to remember and understand that, not just for you and what it will do for you, but for all the people who will come after you. Because someday you'll be in a position where you're looking at resumes and you'll say, hey, that person did debate and they qualified for the NDT, and I know what that means. I know what that means about them. And that's important and that's meaningful. So have a great tournament experience. The board is excited every year to kind of vet the sites and work with the host to put on this tournament. You're part of a tremendous tradition, a tremendous intellectual tradition, and I wish everybody luck, and I hope that when Tuesday gets here, you feel like you've made the most of this experience and this opportunity. So congratulations to all of you for qualifying, and have a great tournament. who is also a member of the Board of Trustees, I've known Sherry for a long, long time too. Back when she debated for North Texas, is going to talk a little bit about some of the folks from this community that we've lost this year. So Sherry.
Thank you, Carla. Yeah, I'm going to start off by talking about some of the people that we've lost in the community this year. The first person is Kyle Garrison. Kyle was on the team with me when I debated at North Texas, and then he was also, that was my first year that I coached. The year after I graduated, I stayed and coached at North Texas, and he was one of the first debaters that I coached. He was really, really a great teammate, someone who genuinely cared about everybody else on the team and wanting to make everybody laugh and feel comfortable. After I left North Texas and went to the University of Kentucky during Kyle's junior year, he was diagnosed with osteogenic sarcoma, which claimed his leg. And when I learned that he was in the hospital and was about to have his leg amputated, I called my father, who was also an amputee, and asked him if he would take a few minutes to go and talk to Kyle in the hospital and sort of just prepare him for what life was going to be like. And so my father agreed to do that, and Kyle was very interested in having him come talk to him. And he thought this would be, about a 10-minute conversation of just sort of kind of laying out what some of the roadblocks and some of the issues were going to be. He ended up spending almost 2 hours talking to him. And, a little bit of it was about that, but he mainly ended up just telling jokes and stories and had my father crying. He was laughing so hard when he came out of there. And he was very impressed with Kyle's attitude. He had no bitterness, he had no self-pity. He was just sort of, okay, well, what's it going to be like? This is my life, this is what I've got to embrace, this is what's next. He took that year off of debate, and because he had pretty serious chemo, lost all of his hair, and beat cancer. Came back and debated his senior year. Later, he became a professional campaign manager who ran a lot of local campaigns throughout the North Texas area. But he was really, really a caring person who always thought about other people. When he died, he was down in Beaumont, Texas, helping people with relocation efforts after Hurricane Harvey. And that was kind of typical of his mindset. He was always trying to find ways to make the world a better place around him. And this year, the cancer that took his leg at age 19 came back and took his life. Kyle was 53 years old. Joe Peary debated in Utah in high school with Danny Fitzgerald. And Danny and Joe sort of blasted onto the national scene, which, not to dish Utah, but it was kind of unusual for a team from Utah to be as well known and as successful on the national circuit as they were. And Dallas and I had the great pleasure of having both of them in our lab when we actually taught a lab together at the Michigan Debate Camp. And then in another year, Joe worked with us teaching at the American Debate Camp, and we really got to know him well. And he was really, really a great person. He went on to debate for Wake Forest, where he was dubbed by the rest of the team Provo Joe, which I always thought was a great name for him. Josh Live said of him, Joe was one of those people who proved that competition done right is a welcoming and celebratory activity. Joe was a lifelong member of the Church of Latter-day Saints, and John Hughes wrote about him that he always admired and respected how Joe was a man of faith and very proud of it, yet fit in perfectly with the debate community. Joe passed away from cancer earlier this year. He was married to his high school sweetheart for 25 years and left behind 5 children. Joe Peary was 48 years old. Frank Mitchell passed away last Saturday morning from complications from liver cancer. He debated for 2 years at the University of Montana, and then he and his partner transferred from Montana to the University of Utah, where he qualified for the NDT in 1979. They were considered a very respectable team and expected to clear, like so many of us that expected to clear, fell a little bit short and didn't quite make it. In 1980, he went to graduate school at Wake Forest and was an assistant debate coach there. And while he was there, he was a contemporary with Ed Panetta, who's currently on the Board of Trustees, Arnie Matson, and Jeanette Kennermuir. And they all shared a house, an old Victorian house, which I've been told was known as Mellow Manor. And this house hosted the first 2 survivor parties after the Shirley. Al Loudon shared a story with me today about Frank, who they constantly kidded as Polyester Mitchell. And he said, for those of you who have ever seen that picture of Dallas, the famous picture of Dallas in the jumpsuit, think that for Frank's wardrobe. That's Polyester Mitchell. And so one time they were at a debate tournament, and he had put his bag with all of his clothes on the roof of the car, and everybody else knew that the bag was on the car, but nobody told him. And they drove off, and they lost the bag. And according to Al, his look improved immensely after that point. After he left Wake Forest, he attended Baylor Law School on what was the Jaworski Scholarship, which was a full-ride scholarship for debaters. And he served as an assistant debate coach for the Baylor Bears while he was in law school. And that was the same time that I was debating at North Texas, and he actually judged Joel Rollins and me quite a bit. He then clerked at the Texas Supreme Court and finally settled in Houston working for a big firm. And then he left the firm to start his own small litigation firm and specializing in consumer protection. And he became the lead attorney for the Ford Pinto gas tank fire case, which was a pretty big litigation case at the time. After several decades in Houston, he moved to Las Vegas, where he continued to practice law. And the move was somewhat motivated by the loss of his wife, Melissa Matheny, who I unfortunately talked about a couple of years ago at one of these, because she had also been a debate coach. In Las Vegas, he remained supportive of debate by serving on the advisory board of the Las Vegas Debate League, which is the local UDL. Ed Panetta said that he was a person who didn't take himself too serious, and he made others feel at ease. After he left debate, Frank always kept in touch with his friends that he had made in debate. He was a kind and thoughtful person, and he will be missed. He is survived by his 15-year-old daughter, Delia. Frank was 62. 1 week ago tonight, Sandra Seville Jones went to the emergency room suffering from issues from Crohn's disease. She passed away on Friday from complications from the emergency surgery that she had. Former Redlands debater Bill Isaacson said that in his senior year in high school, he thinks that most people in the country considered Sandra to be the #1 high school debater in the nation. Sandra debated with another woman, Rosemary, and they dominated California high school debate. Now, a 2-woman debate team in the late 1970s that was a good debate team was definitely a rarity. And so they kind of defied all of the odds. She was very highly recruited by a lot of schools and was top speaker at the Harvard High School tournament her senior year in high school, I believe the first woman to have ever achieved that honor. Her first year debating at Harvard, she and her sophomore partner, Bill Fouts, earned the second place first round at-large bid to the NDT. Then she took a couple of years off and debated her senior year for Dallas. Sandra graduated from the UCLA Law School, and she was a prominent attorney in Los Angeles. In 2009, she became her firm's managing partner, one of the few women who was a managing partner in one of the top 200 law firms in the country. Throughout her tenure, she promoted women attorneys and attorneys of color in the firm in the larger community. More than 60% of the firm's newly elected partners under her tenure were either women, attorneys of color, or both. And she became a champion for the issues of both women and attorneys of color in law firms. She spoke frequently about the inclusion of women in law and advocated for young lawyers just getting their start, and was a member of the Leadership Council on Legal Diversity. When she was living in LA, she remained involved in policy debate by being a co-founder of the Los Angeles Metropolitan Debate Commission, which supports academic debate teams in the LA area and is affiliated with NAUTL. John Bredehoft wrote to share some stories of Sandra on the long van drives to tournaments when he was a junior and she was a freshman. He concluded his stories with this comment: "You get to know someone after the 3rd, 4th, or 5th 18-hour van trip. And from the get-go, I always had enormous respect for her intellect and her skills. She was always nice and funny and never had a bad word for anyone. She did more than her share, and she did it with a smile. The world just doesn't seem right without her in it." Sandra Seville Jones was 58. On Tuesday, I received several text and email messages that Michael Leap had passed away last week. He debated at Wayne State and was a 4-time qualifier to the NDT from 2011 to 2014, finishing as a top 10 seed. He was also the top speaker at the ADA National Tournament in 2011 and was an assistant director for the Xylem Debate Institute. He made many good friends with members of the debate community, but especially members of the University of Michigan debate team. Michael was from East Lansing and debated some in high school with Maria Liu. She said, "I loved your creativity, willingness to take risks, spirit, and selflessness. When we would see each other, I loved that we could pick up like we had never missed a beat in each other's lives. You will be dearly missed." He was a grad assistant at Baylor and then an assistant coach at Gonzaga and worked with several different high school programs in Michigan. Glenn Frappier wrote, "In a community of unique individuals, Michael stood out." Michael came to Gonzaga in the spring of 2014. At the time, Michael was seeking a change of scenery, but also trying to stay involved in the community that he loved so much. Despite joining late in the year, he jumped right in and began making a difference. But he wasn't perfect. He had a tendency to miss flights to tournaments. And then he would take rather long, uncomfortable, yet apparently interesting rides on Greyhound buses to get to the tournaments on time. He says that they ended up qualifying 2 teams to the NDT that season, one in part due to Michael being the perfect coach for their particular set of really weird arguments. The world has lost Michael far too soon, but I'm grateful for the short time that my team and I were able to work with him and develop friendships with a genuinely good person. His coaches, Kelly Young, Bruce Nager, and Avery Henry, said of Michael, "He was a brilliant student and debater as well as a great teammate and mentor. He was passionate about debate, both the competition and the community. He often assisted high school teams in Michigan for little or no compensation. He had an indelible laughter that would make those around him smile. His death at such a young age is tragic and saddening, but the mark he left on his colleagues and coaches will endure." Michael Leap was 27 years old. We as a community will miss all of you. I'm going to break with tradition and take an opportunity in this forum to honor someone who is still with us. It is my pleasure tonight to present the George Zigemuller Award for Excellence in Coaching. This award was established in the early 1980s by alums at Wayne State University. Some people call this award the Coach of the Year Award, and while it does recognize excellence in coaching, it is more than just a Coach of the Year Award. It also attempts to recognize scholarly excellence and appreciation of the difficulty that many coaches face in balancing scholarly and academic demands with the demands of coaching. Last year, the board decided to change our procedure for selecting a winner for this award and seek nominations from members of the community. We were blown away with the nominations that we received this year. While there are a lot of concerns about the future of the activity and how we're doing and where we're going, I've got to say, reading the letters about the amazing coaches that we have out there has given me grounds for great optimism about the future of this game. It was very difficult. We want to thank everyone who sent us a letter. A lot of people took time. We had a lot of letters to read. We read through every one of them, and we appreciate the time that everyone took in sending those letters. And it was very difficult for us to select a winner, but we were ultimately persuaded by the unique story of one person. Starting a debate program from scratch is hard. Becoming a director who started a college debate program as a novice is hard. Doing both is unprecedented. This person did not debate in high school. He decided that he wanted to start a program at his university when he was a 17-year-old novice debater without a coach or any infrastructure for a debate program in place. He convinced the university to give him some money, recruited some other students to join the team, and they received some support from the district, and he literally built the program from nothing. He started teaching a debate class at the university in his junior year of college. By the time he graduated, he had convinced the school to create a dedicated grad school position to coach the team and to hire him to take that job, where he then earned his master's degree and his PhD in the English department, since the university does not have a comm department. He currently teaches a multiplicity of courses: debate, rhetoric, science fiction, media, and politics. And he has been rated consistently by students at the university as one of the best professors. He has published journal articles, edited academic books, and writes about disability studies, animal rights issues, and rhetoric. He has also hosted and organized multiple academic conferences at his university. And one of the other ways that he has made a strong, I think, commitment to the communications field is by encouraging and inspiring many of his students to enroll in graduate programs and communication studies departments and to become debate coaches. But not only has he built a debate program, he's built a very inclusive debate program. Many of the letters that we received were from students who had no background in debate and for various reasons had difficulty fitting in at the university environment and feeling accepted. And then they found this debate program. And his primary commitment to his students is empowering them to find their voice and develop the capacity to advocate for themselves. It is my distinct privilege to present the Ziegemuller Award for Coaching Excellence to my colleague, my friend, and fellow vegan, Dr. Joe Schatz. We're going to present a new award this year that was the inspiration of David Kramhowicz's wife, Amy Howich. And we have been trying in different ways to figure out how we can better connect with alumni in our activity. And so one of the things that we want to do is begin to recognize a distinguished alumni. And we decided that the award should be named after perhaps our single most distinguished alumni around, and that is Professor Lawrence Tribe from the Harvard Law School. And to present this award, I give you the person who only needs one name, Dallas.
When DCH told us about Amy's idea to begin to work an alumni association or an alumni organization by giving this award and suggested that we name it after Larry, I was sort of taken aback because I immediately was not convinced that this was our most distinguished alumni. But I got to thinking about it, and I think there is a case to be made that that's true. Larry Tribe, after winning the national debate tournament for Harvard in 1961, went to the Harvard Law School. He clerked for the California Supreme Court and for Potter Stewart on the United States Supreme Court, and joined the Harvard Law School faculty in 1968, became tenured in 1972. He, among other things, I think, was the preeminent scholar of constitutional law in America for his entire generation. His scholarship started in other areas like technology in the law and the law of hearsay and evidence, but he quickly gravitated toward the big-time game of constitutional law. In 1978, he published his treatise, American Constitutional Law, which for 40 years has been the most cited constitutional law treatise in American legal circles. He published another dozen books about constitutional law and is in general, I think, fairly regarded as I say, the preeminent constitutional law scholar of his day. He was also an outstanding lawyer. He argued 34 cases before the United States Supreme Court, depending on how you count a couple of split decisions. He won a majority of those. He was a part of several court cases that you've undoubtedly heard of. He argued the case of Bowers versus Hardwick against the state of Georgia, which had outlawed homosexual sodomy. He lost that case. It was a lot about whether the due process clause of the 14th Amendment involved substantive restrictions. That was the hottest theoretical issue of the day, and he engaged it, I think, brilliantly. Later, of course, the Supreme Court reversed Bowers on equal protection grounds. Some people thought maybe Larry should have gone for that argument, but it wasn't to be. He was also a big part of Bush v. Gore, which determined who the President of the United States was. At the last minute, the Gore campaign decided to let David Boies do the oral argument before the Supreme Court, and we famously lost that one. Larry did win a lot of important cases as well as the losses. I guess the most important is probably Richmond Newspapers versus Virginia. The state of Virginia had undertaken to try criminal indictments in private closed courts with no access by the public or the press. They were railroading young black men off to jail for rape and other serious crimes for the rest of their lives, and no newspaper person, no audience of any kind could witness these star chambers. This was an incredible abuse of power that Professor Tribe challenged pro bono, unpaid, and won in the United States Supreme Court. He was a very accomplished lawyer, and that's distinguished. I also think he distinguished himself as the best teacher I ever knew. I've had some outstanding education. I've been privileged to go to some really good schools and have a lot of great teachers, but I think he was unquestionably the best. The Harvard Law School is a diploma factory. It has over 600 students. So the classes are in giant auditoriums the size of this room with over 200 students. And he was incredibly capable of knowing all of the 200 students, recognizing their face, calling on them, and he was very good at knowing how they would answer the questions. Some of them were very good. They were known conservatives, others were known liberals, and he was very good at knowing what they were going to say and playing off of them. Some people said some silly things, and he would typically manage to say that they were wrong, but also tease out of what they had said some germ of truth from which he could have a teaching moment. The one exception to that was when I said something silly, he just said it was stupid. For 50 years, roughly 10,000 students took constitutional law from Larry Tribe. That includes Chief Justice Roberts, that includes Barack Obama, Justice Kagan, Merrick Garland. A lot of the big names in American legal thinking learned at the feet of this intellectual giant. I feel very privileged to have been part of that little club. Larry couldn't be here tonight. He's a busy guy, and he's also got some health problems. He did ask me to read a short statement, which, and I quote, "As everyone here might readily imagine, I'm rarely rendered speechless. But I really did find myself without words to express my complete surprise and my deep gratitude on learning this January that the Board of Trustees of the NDT has decided to initiate a new award to recognize distinguished alums and has, of all things, planned to name the award the Lawrence Tribe Distinguished Alumni Award and to make me the award's first recipient. Being recognized in this special way by a community that I have so long respected and from which I have drawn all of my closest friends means the world to me. But for intercollegiate debate and the NDT, I probably would be an obscure professor of some abstruse facet of abstract mathematics somewhere, toiling in a vineyard of beautiful truths, but making no singular contribution to their unfolding, and certainly no contribution to addressing injustice and seeking to rectify it. It was debate that brought me out of my introverted shell and introduced me to the worlds of policy research and public dialogue about matters of national and sometimes global consequence. It was debate that transformed me from a shy kid to a relatively outgoing young and now not so young man, and to an occasionally visible presence on a larger stage. It was debate that led, through a circuitous but in hindsight seemingly inevitable route, to law school, to the legal academy, to a life of teaching law students and undergraduates and doctoral candidates, to a career as a writer, to a largely pro bono Supreme Court appellate practice, and to the stimulating world I now inhabit. It was debate that contributed to my most lasting personal relationships, both winning the NDT championship in 1961 and even more, coaching the legendary Harvard team of Joel Perman and Rich Lewis to the NDT championship in 1969 were the highlights of my adult life. I always will be grateful for the lessons that competitive college debate taught me, and now find myself, well, it seems not so quite speechless after all. With gratitude for the horizons open to me and to so many others by debate as an all-consuming educational activity, with hope for those who find their bearings in its challenges, and with boundless appreciation for those of you who decided to bestow this honor on me. Now we have the infamous Josh Zive, our famous lobbyist friend from Washington, to give the Lucy Keel Award.
Alice said. I'm not the most distinguished alumni. I never won this tournament. I have no particularly compelling backstory. Honestly, I'm probably your average NDT story. I had pretty supportive parents. I guess I was sad. I'm a middle-aged cis white dude who has taken advantage of that privilege and mixed it with a little bit of work ethic and a little bit of scrappiness to make the elims a couple of times. And, that's honestly, pretty damn good for someone with my work ethic. But I say all that because I want to let everyone here behind the curtain for a second. I know I'm in the twilight zone of kind of old alumni dude right now. I remember enough of where you all are at to know that you have very little interest in listening to me. A couple years from now, I won't remember that. And so I won't be burdened by any degree of self-consciousness for how long I talk. But this is transactional. Okay, so I'm an old weird alum. I show up around here. You listen to me say nice things about other old people for a while, and then I go out there, and if I do my job right, I help get some money for programs, and then we just stay the hell out of your way while you kind of do your weird magic the same way we did, but you do it by burning down the shit we built, and then the next generation will come and they'll burn down the stuff you built, if it goes right, right? So I say all that to say, in a more serious note, the reason I come here every damn year is because we do not spend enough time saying nice things about each other in this activity. We never have. We are really good at competing, but we are really bad at appreciating the sacrifices that the people in this room make for the other people in this room. I was really bad at recognizing it for, quite honestly, the vast majority of my life. Probably still right now. But by this I mean I'm giving out the Lucy Keel Award, which I'm giving to a coach this year. I'm not going to do my normal shtick of like kind of detached, ironic, middle-aged dude trying to be funny. I'm going to just try to say sincerely nice things about someone I love a great deal, who I get to give this award to tonight. Because this person is a coach. And when people, I'm 46 damn years old, and when people ask me kind of what a defining characteristic of my life is, I still describe myself as a Scott Harris debater, right? When I identify my approach towards the world, I can identify it from a lineage of debate coaches who gave a damn about me, right? It doesn't matter whether it's your director, an assistant coach, a high school coach. It is about having somebody who invests enough usually unpaid, always underpaid, labor into people who at the time very rarely appreciate it as much as they will later in life, right? So if for a few minutes I get a little syrupy about an old person, it's because the one thing I learned as an alum from this activity is that decades from now, I honestly don't care about the arguments I won or lost on, right? I won on some crappy arguments that Harris wrote, like original first generation. You have no idea what Scott Harris as a young man was capable of. It was completely unmoored behavior. But what I do remember are those people who took a few minutes or sometimes a few years to try to keep me from kind of just falling into a ditch. Right, and by that I mean this activity can save lives, and I guarantee you, you don't know me, but I guarantee you there are people in this room whose lives have literally been saved by coaches in this room. Right, and it's why decades from now, you will probably, everyone who's qualified for this tournament will have at least one coach that you will still be thinking of in times of need when you are decades removed from this tournament. So that's why I'm saying nice things about this person tonight. So I'm giving the Lucy Keel Award, and it's about, to me, that bond. It's about taking an avenue to recognize the fact that in this room, we have people who literally could be paid rich sums of money for the skills they have as researchers and teachers and intellectuals or activists, and they're giving their time freely to the other ones of you in here. Not just as they coach an argument, but as they run a tournament, as they run a program, doing ridiculously mundane paperwork, right? That's the horribleness that allows this activity to really exist. It's a bunch of adults making those sacrifices, and this year's recipient of the Keel Award is one of those people. This year's Keel Award goes to Adrian Bravero from Mary Washington. So, you cannot honor, I said I'm a Scott Harris debater. Adrian Bravero is a Ross Smith debater, right? Adrian Bravero is a Ross Smith coach. And so I cannot honor Adrian Bravero as a Ross Smith debater and coach without somewhat of a rambling, hyperbolic speech. But, I mean, take a moment to appreciate the levels of excellence that Adrian Bravero has executed in this activity, right? Competitively, you know, it's easy, as you get more removed from the activity, you think there's just Adrian Bravero, she's kind of grumpy, you know, like she's old school policy, so she could probably, huge chunks of this room have never had her judge you in this day and age. You know, I understand that's the way it works now, like some of you only have these people, whatever. Adrian, competitively in the day, was not to be trifled with. All right, like Adrian won the Copeland Award. She's literally the first woman to win the Copeland Award. It was not named that the time the previous woman had won it. She was the third woman to ever win the Top Bid Award and the first one to win the Copeland Award. She did this at a time when NDT was as small or smaller than it is right now. This was prior to the merge. And I know this does not seem possible. It was even wider and even broier, right, than it is right now, right? That is possible, and Adrian had to exist in that context and thrive in that context. And I tell you, she was a competitor. I had to debate against her. I had to judge her once until she struck me for the rest of her senior year. I had to judge with her, a sometimes pleasant, sometimes miserable experience. Right? I had to coach against her, and she won at all levels. Right? And what do I mean by that? Well, I mean also, she did as a debater, but as a coach, like you know her as Mary Washington now, she's really good, but Adrian's background as a coach, right? She coached at Wake Forest. She coached soon after she graduated. Oh, how did they do? They won their first national championship was literally like the year after Adrian graduated, right? She came off of an NDT like so many of us have, where maybe you didn't get quite where you wanted to be, and she came back the next year and coached her alma mater to the national championship for the coach that kind of brought her through this activity. Then she went to Northwestern and was part of that ungodly machine, right? That just like, everyone talks about Deathridge. Deathridge was amazing, and he was, and he won a ton of national tournaments. But let me tell you, behind Deathridge were people like Adrian Bravero and the love of her life, Judd Kimball, right? Coaches like those of you in this room that built those programs. Adrian was part of that. And then she would go on to do something like, build a program at Mary Washington virtually out of scratch from people who were not being recruited nationally, and then get them to be a nationally competitive team. That is literally one of the hardest things I can still, to this day in my life, having worked with companies of all sizes, people of all sorts, I can't fathom the difficulty of what people like Joe Schatz and Adrian have done. If you ever have to do it, may God have mercy on your soul. It is exhausting, and you will not be compensated, and you will pay in sweat equity to people who don't appreciate it. But you do it because you care about the activity, and that's what Adrian is. And then finally, the third kind of level of her, 3-level game, she builds institutions, right? She coaches novices. She's helped construct and execute summer institutes that have encouraged high school kids at all levels, from young ones to nationally recruited. She runs tournaments. You know, if people don't run these things, this activity goes away, and no one gets paid to do it, right? It takes people like Adrian who will train people to be in the tab room to make these things happen. So this year, I'm super psyched to give this to you, Adrian, because I got to see you coached by Ross. I got to watch you watch Ross win, and everything you have accomplished hasn't just kind of been an honor to people like Ross and to Duck and the institutions they built. It has transcended it in ways that have benefited just kids and created your own line of people who I know talk about being an Adrian Rivero coach in the same way that you talk about, or being an Adrian Rivero debater, in the same way you talk about being a Ross Smith debater. So this year's Keel Award winner, and someone I would take a bullet for, even though she's grumpy, Adrian Rivero. And up next, your tournament director, for the reason you all had to stick around and not leave, Sarah Partlow.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 73rd National Debate Tournament. Please join me in thanking our hosts, David Cram-Helwick and the University of Minnesota. Reminders and announcements, and then we'll get on to what you're actually waiting for, the awards. But first, if you missed the photographer today, there will be a photographer available in the Union from 11 to 1 tomorrow. So that will be first come, first serve. Second, sorry, I've had a cold for a few weeks, so if I clear my throat, I apologize. There are no mavericks allowed at the NDT, not even for one debate, no substitutes. Additionally, there is a conduct code which prohibits harassing, abusive, and violent behavior. If you need to contact the conduct committee, please email the committee at ndtcontact@googlegroups.com, or you can text the tab room, and I'll give you that number in a moment, and I'll get you in touch with them via cell. Judges should pay full attention to debates and minimize distractions, so judges should not be texting or emailing during speeches. The students have worked very hard all year to be here, and they deserve your full attention. All contests are open to participants and invited guests and may be recorded. This is in the NDT rules for educational purposes. Joe Schatz will be leading the live streaming effort. Thank you, Joe. And people who are recording a debate will seek your permission before streaming the debate. So the rule is it can be recorded for educational purposes, but not necessarily put on the internet without your permission. Okay. Benton Bajork is the scouting director. Please thank Benton for serving in this role. We had information sent out on this earlier. We've done all that we can to make the tournament accessible to everyone. We appreciate everybody's patience and cooperation. There are limited ADA spaces available in the Union, but we've done our best to accommodate all of the requests that we've had. Additionally, there are quiet rooms and gender-neutral bathrooms. These are detailed on the National Debate Tournament website called nationaldebatetournament.org. So please go and read that, and there are maps of gender-neutral restrooms and everything like that. No smoking and no alcohol or controlled substances in any competition space. And I think that's all the rule reminders and announcements. So now it is time to recognize the top 5 first round at-large bid teams of 2019. I'll start by talking a bit about the special awards given to the top teams and their coaches, and then move on to recognizing the teams. So the Copeland Award is given to the top first round at-large bid team. On September 21st, 1989, the life of Rex Copeland was brought to a sudden and tragic close. With its end, Samford University lost an outstanding student, the forensics community lost an excellent debater, and his many friends were deprived of the friendship and love of a fine individual person. It is in recognition of those rare professional and personal qualities which Rex offered that Samford University put together with his parents an endowment to create this award in his name. Therefore, with the agreement of the NDT Board of Trustees and the National Debate Tournament Committee, the Rex Copeland Memorial Award is presented annually to the college debate team ranked #1 in the first round at-large team selections. Rex's legacy is in his joy of life, his good nature and warm personality make us forever remember him. Family and friends brought him happiness. Debate competition brought him honor among his peers. Few will have known Rex in a few years except through this memorial award. To those lucky enough to remember him, his love of life should be what we think of when his name is mentioned. To those who never knew him, know that his happiness came not from a single-minded pursuit, but from the balance of hard work and play. Life is too short to forget those people and events that truly make a difference. In 2009, the James Unger Award was established to recognize the coach of the top first round at-large team, or the Copeland winner. So without further ado, we'll start with number 5. Congratulations to the 5th ranked first round at-large bid team from the University of California at Berkeley, Nathan Fleming and Miles Gray. Seed slot is from the university, or Emory University, Alex Gazmararian and Zahir Sheikh. In 3rd place from Georgia is, surprise, surprise, Swapnil Advait and, no, so I got it wrong, I'm sorry, Swapnil Agrawal and Advait Ramanan. In 2nd place from Harvard is John Cooper and Ayush Midha. And the 2019 top first round at large bid receiving the Copeland Award from the University of Kentucky is Dan Bannister and Anthony. Congratulations. So after this, this will conclude this meeting, but after this, Benton wants to meet with the scouts in the back corner. So if you're a scout, please go to that back corner for a quick scouting meeting. We will see you in the morning. There is breakfast at 7:30, and the announcements will be at 8 a.m. promptly.